Wolfpack, what's going on? It's your boy, the Wolf of RotoStreetJournal.com. We breed and feed you fantasy wolves here with your week 3 waiver wire. My apologies, it's a little bit later than usual. Busy day at school. Got home late, had to get the rankings done, but got to get live before your waivers lock. Happy to answer any and all questions you guys have if you're live with me here. Looks like we already got 15 questions in the mailbag before I even got live. Love to see it. Thank you so much for choosing to spend your time with me and hear my thoughts on the waiver wire. Cannot wait to dive in. Let's waste no more time, though, because as I said, we're a little late here tonight. As always, we will start with our first checklist for those smaller leagues, less competitive leagues, maybe a few names still out there that you want to make sure to look for before we get into the guys owned in less than 50% of leagues. First would be Kyren Williams, the number one guy on my list last week. You love to see how well that is panning out so far. Puka was also my clear number 2. And if you don't forget, I did say blow it all, get all the fab you need in to get those guys. And if you don't believe me, I did that in my own league, spent 80 combined dollars to get Kyren Williams and Puka. And I couldn't be happier that I did it, even though I'm now sitting at 0 fab. Doesn't matter. Does definitely preclude me from the Jerome Ford sweepstakes. We'll dive into him in a little bit. But first, check for Kyren Williams. The fact that he's owned right now less than Josh Kelly is laughable. You should never have had Kelly higher. Listen to me, you wouldn't have. But let's continue forward. 14 rushes, 52 yards, and a touchdown. But the big thing, the 10 targets, 48 yards on 6 catches as well. A huge day. 97% of the snaps, 87% of the routes. That is elite RB1 usage. And even though Kyren Williams, not overly special as an athlete himself, had a monster production profile at Notre Dame, a great receiver there, a great 3-down back. We're seeing it all come to fruition. There's truly no one behind him with Cam Akers, a healthy scratch and likely to get traded. If somehow Kyren's out there, I would even go above him on Jerome Ford. I would rather have Kyren Williams at this point. Just feels a lot more certain moving forward. Nico Collins also out there in 60-ish, owned at 60% of leagues, so about 40%, but got a bunch of questions on him on my Twitter post. So I just want to shout out, yes, absolutely go all in on Nico Collins. I'd go Kyren first. I'd go Jerome Ford also above Nico Collins. But behind that, let's go for this big guy who has 20 targets so far, tied for 6th in the league with that, behind only Olave, Michael Pittman, Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, and God himself, Puka Nacua, leading the NFL with 35 targets, 10 more than Jefferson. Insane. Hopefully you got him last week. But Nico Collins also playing quite well on the back of a ton of volume from CJ Stroud. We'll talk more about that later, but he goes for a career high 146 yards on 7 catches and a score. Monster day for Nico Collins. Looks like the clear alpha, like a lot of beat writers were suspecting in training camp practices. Great to see him really coming into fruition, using that big body well. And the last first check, and again, this guy would be behind Jerome Ford and maybe even my number 2 pick of the week. But Jaylen Warren, I have to remind you guys of how much upside this guy has. 6 carries for 20 yards, ho-hum, nothing great, but 66 yards on 4 catches. And again, just making so many explosive plays every time the ball gets into his hand. It does remind many people making this comparison, and I also agree with it, that Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott type of committee here, where Najee Harris is that Zeke gross leading the league in snaps and all the touches, and nobody wants to see it. And Jaylen Warren comes in and just thrives behind him. It seems to me like a similar situation here. And just like last year, maybe we will see Jaylen Warren finally emerge and take over. I don't believe it will ever flip completely in his favor, barring injury, but still 19% target share on here, 13 PPR points compared to just 5 for Najee Harris, and 44% of the snaps for Jaylen Warren. We never saw him cross that 40% threshold last year. He's now done it in back-to-back games. Najee Harris had only 58%. He's looking like one of the worst picks you could have possibly made this year in the 4th round or even sooner. Pure volume back is not even getting it right now, and Warren continuing to creep up in the usage, clearly maintaining that explosiveness as well. Handcuffed with benefits to the fullest. Definitely check for Jaylen Warren and continue to hold him if you have him on his team. That wraps up our first check. Look, Wolfpack, please do consider, if you enjoy what you're hearing, that like and sub button are so greatly appreciated. Join this Wolfpack. We're live 4 times a week answering your questions. We hope you enjoy the content. And if you do, a thumbs up is a nice, free, easy way to support your boy. Alrighty, Wolfpack, we are going to now dive into the top 10 pickups for week 3. And at the top of my list, and any credible list in the industry, is Jerome Ford. And I think you have to go all in. And I mean all in. All 100% of your budget. If you have $100 left, go and spend it all to make sure you get Jerome Ford. And whatever you have left, throw it in there and see if you have a shot at getting this man. He is that interesting with 16 carries, 106 yards, in addition to 25 receiving yards in that touchdown. A great, efficient performance. But of course, as we know, the big reason for that was Nick Chubb's injury. Pour one out for the man. The ultimate respect for that player. Top 3 favorite player of mine in the NFL. Absolutely gutted last year. Gutted for Browns fans. Gutted for Nick Chubb, who knows what this means for his career. It hurts. It stings. It's awful. But Jerome Ford is the one that's going to be left picking up these pieces. And we have seen the number 2 back for this Browns offense continue to be an extremely valuable role. According to Mary Kay Cabot, Stefanski said in his presser that he's going to be featuring Jerome Ford. You don't replace Nick Chubb, but Jerome Ford will be featured moving forward, was his exact line. And you like to hear that because whenever he's gotten used, as mentioned this last week, racked up, RB7 on that usage for about 3/4 of the game. But even dating back to last preseason, we got one extended look at Jerome Ford, 10 carries, 57 yards, and a TD, in addition to 4 catches, 45 yards, and a score through the air. I know it's preseason, but just to highlight, the guy can shoulder multiple workloads in both facets of the game and be highly efficient on the work. So great to see Jerome Ford getting serious usage here if you have him on your team, or you want to make sure to go spend it all to get this guy. You think about Kareem Hunt averaging over 14 points per game as the starter with Nick Chubb out. But look even deeper than that. Roschon Johnson starting for just 2 games in 2021, 24.8 and 22.7 fantasy points in his 2 starts. It's a masterful zone blocking scheme with a good line. We know Stefanski likes to lean on the run. So do whatever you can. Go get Jerome Ford. Spend every single ounce of your FAAB to make sure you do it. I do want to shout out, in case he's already owned or you missed out on him, Pierre Strong. Probably going to go for free. He's a very explosive playmaker. 4.37 40, 99th percentile for speed, size, score, in addition to a 95th percentile burst score. The guy has great lateral ability. In fact, he was among the top backs in Pro Football Focus's zone blocking, zone scheme concepts graded as a runner. And that's exactly what the Browns do best. They made sure to go out and trade for him, so they clearly identified him as a scheme fit. So if something ever happened to Jerome Ford, now you're going at the next backup, similar to what that Roschon Johnson situation was. So, of course, Ford is the main guy, but don't forget about Pierre Strong as the handcuff to the handcuff now. I'm guessing they might bring in, they're already working out Kareem Hunt. The fact that he hasn't signed anywhere, the fact that they didn't work him out earlier than this, it tells me this guy's kind of washed. He didn't look great last year anyway, so even if he shows up, I'm not worried for Jerome Ford. Maybe Pierre Strong will get overtaken by Kareem Hunt if he did end up signing, but I think this is the Jerome Ford show moving forward. And even then, I still think Pierre Strong might be ahead of anyone else they bring in. I really like the kid. As a Patriots fan, I thought he showed some great things on tape last year, and I was sad to see him get traded. So again, spend it all. Jerome Ford, summary, do it. Moving on to my second pickup of the week. After Jerome Ford, it gets a little ugly, but I love Tank Dell. He's one of the last players on this week's list that I truly want to go out of my way to go get, and would spend about 25% or so of my FAAB to go out and get him. A couple other rookies we're going to mention right after him too that also intrigued me a ton. But let's start with my favorite, Tank Dell. CJ Stroud, let's start there actually. 3rd in the NFL with 91 pass attempts. That's creating a massive aerial pie. I can't lie and say it's a delicious aerial pie. It's been pretty hideous, to be honest with you. But he does, that creates massive volume opportunities, and it looks like CJ Stroud has eyes for Tank Dell. He led the team in targets with 10, target share 24%. He was 2nd in routes at 82%, and ended up having a quality day on this usage. 7 catches, 72 yards, and a touchdown. Really nice day for Tank Dell. Tons of those layup looks, playing the slot, getting open, real shifty at the line. He was shaking his defenders left and right all day. He also brings that deep speed too. So it's not just that short game that he can work. He can truly get deep and take the top off the defense if he'd like to. We saw that in the preseason with that long connection Caught that nice grab in the end zone. The guy can do it all. That touchdown he had, he put the defender just went flying and juked him out. That sudden change of direction is what we love about this kid. So moving forward, if he's going to be playing 82% of the routes, seeing 20% of the targets, don't forget that CJ Stroud banged the table. I want Tank Dell. After they played in the combine together, he wanted this guy beyond belief. The team listened to him, appeased CJ Stroud, and here we go. They're lightened up in their first extended action together on the NFL field. I think Tank Dell is well worth that 25% or so bid. Now below him, Jaylen Reed, he ends up being my number 7 pickup of the week, but I did want to lump him into this kind of rookie conversation here. We saw Jordan Love go for another 3 TDs, and 2 of those TDs went to Jaylen Reed. 4 of 8 targets, 37 yards, and those 2 scores to give him 20 fantasy points. Wide receiver 16 on the week, doubling up the next closest Packers receiver in looks. He was targeted on a whopping 33% of his routes run. Now, that's a little bit of the rub here. Only 67% of the routes pretty firmly locked into that slot role, which isn't a bad place to be, a nice high percentage. You saw the drawn up pop pass for him that gave him that easy touchdown. So good volume when he's running routes, but he was below multiple receivers on that list. And Romeo Doubs leading the way, and Christian Watson wasn't in. Expected to probably return to the field this week too. So I think Reed will have that role on lock in the slot. So 67% or so snaps and routes seems about right. And clearly he can do some damage with them, but I would love to see how he performs with Christian Watson before vaulting up the list. But some of my favorite scouts, JJ Zachariason and Matt Harmon, had a great podcast this preseason about how he reminds them of Stephon Diggs, the way he can get crafty with his routes and still get deep even though he doesn't have elite speed. Really big fan of Jaylen Reed, the player. Flashed all preseason, flashing so far this year. Good stuff out of him. And last, I wanted to mention Marvin Mims, 16% roster. He's my number 10 pickup of the week. The bottom of this list and bottom of the rookies here, but not because of a lack of talent. Remember, Scott Barrett, my favorite analyst in the game, had this guy as his number 2 pre-draft rookie wide receiver prospect. He was the best receiver in high school for multiple seasons, had a good career despite lackluster quarterback play over there in college. And so far, the deep speed has been very, very apparent. 113 yards and a score on just 2 targets against the Commanders. And it's even more impressive when you consider that Marvin Mims only ran 14% of the routes, yet somehow still accounted for 45% of the air yards, thanks to a whopping 45.5 average depth of target. And he hauled them both in for first that 60-yard touchdown and then a 53-yard reception, getting deep against the defense there. He also added a 45-yard punt return, so making plays all over the field. This was the first pick of the Sean Payton era, despite not needing receivers on paper. They wanted to make sure, go out and get him. You wish the role would match it early on, and he would be playing at least 60% of the snaps like freaking Brandon Johnston did. And he had multiple scores this week. So you can only imagine, kind of gets you thinking, what if Mims has that role if and when? You got to imagine with this type of elite speed and prospect profile that he will eventually take it over. We know Judy and Sutton also have big injury histories. So yeah, the negative 16 to 66 snaps, 5th on the team behind Sutton, Judy, Brandon Johnson, even a little Jordan Humphrey played more snaps than Marvin Mims, but the damage he did when he was in there, you got to imagine a smart coach like Sean Payton is going to continue to elevate this role. So I do rank them again, Tank Dell, then Jaylen Reed, and then Marvin Mims. With Tank Dell, about 25% of my FAAB. Reed, maybe 10%. Marvin Mims, that 5 to 7% range. Go get these guys, though. Exciting young talents. I think uphill from here, it's only going to ascend. So big fans of those 3 rookies. Moving back to running backs, behind Jerome Ford, my number 2 running back of the week would be Roschon Johnson, 33% rostered. I'd spend about 25%, maybe even 30% if you're running back needy on this guy. Love the player, love the increasing role. Khalil Herbert, yeah, still started. Only 7 carries, 35 yards, and then a catch for 23 yards. Not a bad day, efficient as he usually is, but Roschon Johnson on almost less than half the touches, 32 yards, nearly matched the output on the ground. Did have a 10-yard reception in that game as well. The big thing for both of these guys is that Donta Foreman was a healthy scratch. That opens up so much more of a ceiling for both players when it's not a 3-headed nightmare. Well, maybe it's a little bit of a 3-headed nightmare in the fact that Justin Fields, he vultured a touchdown, and that's going to continue to happen here. And that does cap the upside of everybody, but at least when you remove that Donta Foreman, huge size thorn there, ultimately that could give a clearer path to a ceiling. If it does remain this kind of near even split, Khalil Herbert, 59% of the snaps, Roschon, 43%. 47% of rushes went to Khalil, 27% went to Roschon. It remains this kind of 50-50 or even, 60-40 favoring Herbert. Yeah, Roschon's not going to ultimately realize the ceiling in that, but you just got to look at the eyeball test. And as good as Herbert has been, I think Roschon, handpicked by this team, looks a little bit better as well. Still dominating in terms of routes. I think we're going to see a takeover sooner than later. And at minimum, it's a near 50-50 split already. And that's pretty tough to find on your waiver wire. Talented rookie, role should grow. Big fan of Roschon Johnson moving forward. Now, I am also a fan of Tutu Atwell. Back-to-back weeks, finishing as a top 30 wide receiver, finishing, yes, clearly behind Puka Nacua, 20 targets. Never going to match that. And that's not his role. He's not in that cut. But this does Tutu Atwell's production feel a bit more sustainable at this point. Second on the team in targets behind Nacua at the wide receiver position. Of course, as we mentioned, Kyren Williams, those 10 targets there for him. But now we've got 70 yards, top 30 performance. Before that, 119 yards in week 1. So quality usage. We've got Matt Stafford looking like Matt Stafford of 2 years ago, fired up to be playing with these guys. And Van Jefferson's dog shit. I mean, there's no reason to have him on your rosters at this point. It's clearly Nacua, Kyren Williams, and then Tutu Atwell. Offense is just flowing completely through these guys. They've even made Tyler Higbee expendable at this point. So I love what this offense is doing. I think Tutu Atwell for at least how long Cooper Kupp is out. But I imagine Nacua and Tutu Atwell will remain very, very active even when Kupp returns. Sure, he'll absorb a ton of that look, but I think Tutu Atwell brings a skill set this offense needs. Moving past him, my third running back of the week and my number 5 overall pickup is Justice Hill. If he's still lingering, despite being a top pickup for many people last week, still under 50% of leagues. So I'd say this is the last call on him if you're still out there on your waiver wire. Goes 11 carries for 41 yards, 3 catches for 12 yards, a ho-hum day. Nothing overly special, but it is that workload that's still favoring Hill. He started the game. He played 54% of the snaps. He did run 59% of the routes compared to just 28% of routes for Gus Edwards. He saw 35% of the carries compared to 32% for Gus Edwards, who did have a better day. 10 carries, 62 yards, did find the end zone as well. But Hill did get the first crack at the end zone as well. They did split the inside the 5 attempts at a dead even 50-50. So with Hill dominating the routes and also getting mixed in inside the 5, has a bit more of the valuable role. Now, if it's one or the other, I still do prefer Edwards, as I said last week. Saw why. The more efficient runner, the more powerful guy getting the goal line work. Imagine that will earn the coaching staff's trust a bit more. And Edwards' role, I expect to grow a bit, but does seem like Justice Hill will remain heavily involved in what we expect to be one of the more ascending offenses in the league throughout this year. So I really still like Justice Hill as an ad. Got some, can I drop him? Why? 50% back in one of the better offenses of the league. Those don't grow on trees. I would be holding Justice Hill and continuing to see how his role evolves throughout the next coming weeks. Tyjae Spears, my number 6 waiver wire pickup of the week. Next running back for me on this list. Goes 8 carries for 49 yards. A nice, efficient day. Also adding 6 yards on 2 catches. 55 total yards on 10 touches. Not bad for Tyjae Spears. Now, unlike last week, remember week 1, he outsnapped Derrick Henry when the team was in a negative game flow the entire matchup. This week, we did see that definitely swing back to King Henry's favor. 73% of the snaps, 74% of the rush attempts, and even 45% of the routes going to the King. And he saw a 13% target share as well. All of those bested Tyjae Spears, who's at 35% of snaps, 24% of rushes, and 28% of routes. That factor actually worried me a bit the most, where Derrick Henry's running more routes than Tyjae Spears. That's not what we expected. But you're not really picking Spears up to have usable value right now. Anyways, it's really just that handcuff with benefits snap. Yeah, could you toss him into your flex if absolutely desperate? Maybe. He had 8 points in PPR leagues, was a top 25 running back because of that. So yeah, sure, he is useful, but you're really picking up Spears for that elite handcuff upside to beat the rush like we're seeing right now with Jerome Ford. You're going to have to go blow all your FAAB on him. Should something ever happen to Derrick Henry, hitting that 30-year-old cliff, Obviously, if anyone's going to be an outlier, it's the monster, it's the king. But something could happen to this guy eventually, and Spears would be the next man up. He's the only other back seeing the field right now, and I think he would absolutely thrive. He looks really good, looks like he belongs, has speed that pops off the page even at the NFL level, was so elite at lesser competition at the college level. So it's great to see when those smaller school prospects get on the NFL field and prove, yes, I do belong. And I think Spears has absolutely done that. All right, well, Pep, we're going to wrap up this list in a second, but please, again, one more time, consider that thumbs up button. Almost 30 of you here. It really does help us get out to more people and grows the Wolfpack. If you do enjoy it, you want your questions answered throughout the week, live 4 times, do consider hitting that sub button and helping us continue to grow. It is so awesome to have you here. And if you're catching this on Twitter, remember, I can't see those questions and comments. Please do consider coming over to YouTube. It's not me trying to force people to the YouTube channel. I'd be happy to answer the Twitter questions if they came through here. They used to. I don't know what's going on with StreamYard anymore, but the Twitter questions do not show up. So please, if you have a question for me on Twitter, consider coming over to the YouTube stream. I clicked it. I put it on the profile there. So come on over if you have questions there. Let's wrap up this list with a few of those usable vets. These are guys you can definitely stream when you're in a pinch. They don't have the upside of some of those rookies we talked about earlier, but these are guys that really are seeing volume, getting it done, that you can toss in the lineup as early as this week if you need it. We'll talk first with Josh Reynolds. He'd be my first of the usable vet category, having himself a solid day here. Josh Reynolds. Ultimately, we see Jared Goff thriving, 323 yards, 3 touchdowns on this aerial pie. And then we got Josh Reynolds, the main factor of here behind Amon-Ra St. Brown. 81% of the routes went to Josh Reynolds. That led the team. Second in targets behind Amon-Ra St. Brown with 18%. And, of course, Jahmyr Gibbs seeing that 9 targets as well. But it's clear he's the number 2 wide receiver in this, definitely outplaying and outproducing and outsnapping Marvin Jones, who only saw 59% of the routes, 0% of the targets. So it is the Josh Reynolds show as the number 2 option in this ascending offensive attack. Sure, is he just a placeholder for Jameson Williams? Probably. But Williams has really never stayed on the field, shown anything consistent. I do think the guy brings such a different gear that could make this offense blow up down the stretch. But he's got to earn that first. Couldn't stay healthy. He can't stay clean off the field at this point. So I like Josh Reynolds, at least as a streamer against Atlanta this week, a top 10 matchup for wide receivers. And I think even when Jameson Williams returns, you might get some usable value out of Reynolds. Now, if you miss out on him, Robert Woods, now seen 9 targets and 10 targets. Old, veteran, crafty guy that is a staple of that 49ers style scheme. Remember, he came from the McVay offense. That's where Bobby Slowick was groomed under, the Shanahan-McVay tree. And Robert Woods is proving to be a great fit, that reliable security blanket with those 19 targets through 3 weeks. None of it has been overly exciting. 6 catches and 74 yards last week, but that's usable in PPR. 6 for 57 the week before. I mean, he's gone over 11 PPR points so far in back-to-back weeks to kick this year off, and it just brings you back to the point. Stroud, 3rd in the NFL with 91 pass attempts. That volume is going to be feeding wide receivers, whether it's pretty or not. Nico Collins at the top, take Dell next up, but Robert Woods, definitely a guy. In fact, he's the one that led this team in route participation so far. So look to Robert Woods if you're desperate for a wide receiver and you just want a nice, sure 10 points. That certainly has its usage, especially as bye weeks are starting to approach us. And last, probably least on this list, but Devontae Parker, I really felt like deserved a shout out, and I've seen nobody talk about him. So let's dive into him quickly. 8 targets, hauls in 6 of them for 57 yards. Not an incredible stat line, but you look deeper. 100% of the routes went to him on the field for every single snap. 20% target share. Sure was out-targeted by Bourne, 22%. And I do prefer Bourne, who's 42% rostered right now. Go out and get him if he's somehow out there in your league, though. But he saw only 55% of the routes did Kendrick Bourne. He only hauled in 4 of his 9 targets. And that, 19.56. You're the average depth of target. I was at the game multiple times going deep to Kendrick Bourne and just couldn't connect down there. I like that usage better. I do prefer Kendrick Bourne, but it is clear Devontae Parker has a solid blocker, that big contract they gave him this offseason as well. He's going to be a staple in this offense. Kendrick Bourne was next with 55% of the routes, and then Juju, only 53% of the routes. It is clear cut. No-brainer. Parker is going to be that every down guy at this point. Yes, Hunter Henry also next up, 91%. And if he's somehow out there in your leagues, 56% rostered, I mean, I'd go into him over pretty much anyone on this list besides Tank Dell and Jerome Ford. So Hunter Henry's still out there. Definitely go check for that as well. But I think Parker, very reliable guy, solid possession receiver, can use that big frame in the red zone. In fact, this role maintains, and he is viable throughout the year with it. Now, if you wanted any honorable and then other questions, I just want to shout out a few names that we haven't talked about yet. Jaylen Hyatt, 12% rostered at 89 yards on 2 catches, a couple deep flashes, didn't rack up the stats of Marvin Mims, but played on a few more downs than him, and similarly flashes that elite separation speed. If you're looking for a stash instead of one of these ugly usable vets, I think Jaylen Hyatt ahead of the Thursday night game. If you can cut him after he plays, even better. In case you don't like what you see, he does nothing against the Chargers or the 49ers rather. No harm, no foul. Cut him, pick somebody up heading into the weekend. I think Jaylen Hyatt makes a great stash. We mentioned Pierre Strong behind Jerome Ford. Everyone will be on Ford, as they deservedly should be. But Pierre Strong, if you miss out on Ford, not a bad option. Stroud, we keep talking about it. 91 attempts, third in the NFL. Volume is volume, and it's ultimately looking okay with CJ Stroud. He's under duress more than any quarterback in the league so far. But he has moved the ball 380 yards this last week. Not bad. And then Kendre Miller, Jamal Williams banged up, only 13% rostered. He'll have maybe the backfield to himself this week if he's back. We have Kamara on suspension one more game. I'm very excited to see what Kendre Miller, very talented kid out of TCU, has had trouble staying healthy so far at the NFL level. But Tony Jones, I mean, yeah, he got 2 touchdowns last week, but it was so gross, as it always is with him. That could easily be Kendre Miller as a desperation stream. Maybe you toss a dart also at Craig Reynolds or Bam Knight. 2 guys that are going to be playing behind David Montgomery, who's now banged up. We know Jahmyr Gibbs. They want him to remain in that pass-catching role even when Montgomery left. Craig Reynolds came in and saw 60% of the rushes from that point forward. So I do expect if they get close in the red zone, I bet Reynolds will end up getting that work, as frustrating and annoying as that might be. Or maybe it's Bam Knight as well in very, very deep leagues. I get so many. None of these guys are in my league, Wolf. I've got the deepest league in the world. If they have Craig Reynolds and Bam Knight, then okay, I'll give you the award. I can't name anybody that's available to you. But let's be real. I'm guessing they're out there, and if you're desperate, you might get some usable volume, at least from Reynolds, and I expect Bam Knight, a solid player last year for the Jets. And, of course, Kareem Hunt, toss a feeler out there. Get him on your bench in case he does land with the Browns, because, yes, I do love Jerome Ford. I'm very intrigued by Pierre Strong as well, but we know Kareem Hunt brings a ton of familiarity with this team. All righty. Let's now move on to my top week 3 D streamers of the week. It's a no-brainer. If the Chiefs are out there, 39% rostered, go get them and don't even listen to anything else I have to say. They put up 10 points last week, 4 sacks, fumble recovery, and that was against the high-powered, apparently, Trevor Lawrence and Jags. 9 points to them. Very solid effort, and that was with Chris Jones playing only 50% of the snaps. As they continue to get more and more active with him, 75% of snaps or more is what you should expect coming into this defense will only get better. And if they can hold Trevor Lawrence to 271 yards of total offense, what do you think they're going to do to the Bears and Justin Fields, who are floundering to start the year? In fact, they have gone and given up a defensive touchdown in both of their first 2 weeks. The Bears have. That also included 6 sacks and 17 fantasy points allowed to the Bucs. We saw 15 points go to the Packers the week before. They're giving up the Bears the most points to defenses by a pretty significant margin so far. And an opportunistic team like the Chiefs, explosive, can get after you. This is a great spot. They are going to be a top 3 defense for me just in general, but especially as a streamer, my number 1 pickup. It's not even close. The Packers, 34% rostered, also deserve your streaming consideration. What do they do well? Defend the pass. What do the Saints do poorly? The run. So this matches up with the Saints' strengths, and that's very much in quotes. Strengths is their passing game. I think the Packers outdo that strength quite significantly with Jair Alexander. They'll also be at home, and we know Derek Carr. All but 2 of his interceptions last year came on the road. Historically through his career, nearly 75% of his picks have been in road games compared to home games. And we saw him struggling against a Carolina defense that didn't even have J.C. Horn this past week. The Saints ranked 10th in points allowed to defenses, only 25th in scoring offense. They just seem to stall every time they can get it into the red zone. So I imagine at home with that stout pass defense, the run defenses, those woes, they're not going to matter in this game. I think they will swallow up Derek Carr. I can see multiple picks, and they did score a touchdown, this Packers defense, in week 1, so they can be very opportunistic with a high ceiling. And last but not least, the Tennessee Titans facing the Browns. Oh, man. I think the Browns are quickly going to become a streaming destination for you. The Titans, not a great defense. They're, in fact, particularly awful against the pass. But you know who's awful at passing? Deshaun Watson. Looks like an absolute disaster. Pick 6 on his first throw of the game last week. 2 defensive touchdowns surrendered. Oh, man. And now Nick Chubb is out. Again, prayers up, speedy recovery. I hope we see Nick Chubb again next year. But without him, Jerome Ford, we just raved about him. He's going to be a player. But if the Tennessee Titans can do anything, it's stop the run. They are one of the best run defenses in the league. That's dating back to pretty much every year under Mike Vrabel at this point. So you're going to be forcing Deshaun Watson to throw. We saw 6 sacks for the Steelers defense. We saw 4 turnovers. 2 of them go for touchdowns. Anytime you can force Watson to have to throw, your defense is likely going to be in for a good day. At least this version of Deshaun Watson, which is crazy to think after a couple of years of being the best quarterback in the league in many people's opinion. Now we're seeing his true colors, and they're ugly on every level. I can't wait to watch him get smothered by every team. He's the worst. All righty, that wraps up our top 3 defensive streamers for week 3. Wolfpack, it is now time to answer all of your questions in the But I clicked it. Delayed. All right. Well, I've had an animation queued up, but let's dive in instead to the actual mailbag. Maybe the animation will. Nice delay for you. Kevin Rice, my apologies. We don't have the mod here. I forgot to put the invite in the chat here for our man David Campanelli, who's probably sitting there screaming at the television. Wolf, you have a super chat. I hope you're still with us. Kevin Rice, thank you so much for your support of your boy. We got another one, too, from Maggie. Oh, man, 2 super chats tonight. I'm just going to toss and call in live because I know my man Campanelli is probably freaking out right now that he's not here and not letting me know that we have a couple super chats. So I'm putting that in there into the stream. But let's start. Kevin Rice, super chat for $4.99. Thank you so much for your support. And sorry I didn't get right to it and let you cut the line. Tossing my priority on Ford, absolutely. Your number 1 pick, you got all your FAAB in the world. Ford deserves all of it. Would you trade Henry in London for Eckler? Risky because injury, obviously, but we'll have Pollard, Ford, Madison in case. I mean, Madison sucked. This is a good question, Kevin. I would ask this. I need a little context, but if you're 2-0, I think so. Because I don't love London. I mean, I think you're kind of selling well at this point, given that you had that 0 point day to start, comes out with a nice rebound effort. But we're going to have a lot of that up and down roller coaster, and he's probably not somebody you're ever going to want to trust in your lineup. So it really becomes Henry for Eckler, straight up swap there. I'd like to do that, especially if you're 2-0. Now, we also got that recent news that there's no timeline on Eckler. I imagine he typically recovers fast and plays well. I imagine he's going to just rebound it within the next week or 2. But what if this lingers? They have the week 5 bye, and that's kind of where I imagine they're targeting. If he sits this week, why not hold him out one more in week 4? Week 5 bye, you've given him an extended time. So I personally, I have Eckler on my own team, I'm planning for that absence. So yeah, you have the depth if you have Pollard and Ford, but now you got Ford against the Titans. That's not a great matchup. We saw it not work out for Josh Kelly this last week. I think Madison is complete and utter doo-doo. So if you're not 2-0 right now, if you're 1-1 or God forbid 0-2, I don't think you can absorb this. If you think you can make it to week 5 and really sweat out, 3-2 by the time you get to week 5, and then you get Eckler after that bye, then I'm feeling much better. Because I do like Eckler long-term above Henry, particularly with the cliff coming for Henry. He's getting pretty involved as a receiver too, but I do like Tyjae Spears behind him. Either way, I would probably do this if you really feel like you can weather it. But as you can see, it's not like a home run slam dunk trade. And if I don't feel great about it, sometimes I don't even bother with it. But I would say, especially if you're 2-0, you think you can be 3-2 by the time you get out of week 5 and you got Eckler at full speed. Again, that's what I expected, just to guess. No clue if it's true or not, where they hold him out to. But I think that would be a decent play. But yes, still, regardless of what you do, go get Jerome Ford is how I would play that. And then we did have a super chat as well from Megan, who also is calling in. So I will pull up your chat. And then if you're called in as well, Megan, I'll pull you onto the show. How's it going tonight?
Hey, greetings from down under, everyone. As you can see in my super chat, I have Atwell, Puka, and Johnson. I'm a little concerned about Puka. I know, okay, against the Seahawks, as you can see, he was brilliant. And I didn't expect a heck of a lot against the Niners. He did better than expected. Is he dropping off, or am I overthinking, number one? And number two, now I've just got to, quickly check. Should I be dropping Tyler Higbee and Dalvin Cook? I don't want to, but should I be?
All righty, let's dive into those questions, Megan. Thank you so much for the call. Awesome to know we're getting calls and love from down under, spreading the worldwide influence of the Roto Street. I love to hear all of that. So yeah, I love Atwell too. We'll start with that, but I like Puka even more. 35 targets through 2 weeks. That's a NFL record. That's a rookie record. 20 targets in a game, 15 catches in a game. So many records are being set by this guy right now. And I don't really see much reason for a drop-off until Kupp returns. I'm expecting 20 targets a week. You can't expect that for any receiver. I mean, he has 10 more targets than Justin Jefferson on the year so far. That's nuts. So we can't expect that every single week. But I do think 12 to 15, it seems like that's going to be the floor here. 10 catches or so every single week for Puka, even when they're just kind of layup looks and nothing overly deep. He can get deep. I do imagine, yes, when Kupp comes back, of course it's going to take a hit. But I do kind of picture this as a Robert Woods type of role. He does a lot of the things Robert Woods does well. Matt Harmon, one of my favorite analysts, drew a comparison to him in a video. So this is a Robert Woods clone with what he likes to do and the routes he likes to run. So I do think Puka is going to remain A-OK, goes maybe from this dominant wide receiver 1 type to a mid-range wide receiver 2. But I wouldn't be panicking at all. I would not be overthinking it. I think you should absolutely be holding Puka.
I've already got 6 boys in my 18-man league wanting him. Him, Amon, and Atwell are hard no boys. And I love what Cooper Kupp said about Puka, that he is the player that most reminds him of himself. So, yeah. So what do I do with Dalvin Cook? Dalvin Cook, Tyler Higbee, and Jason Myers. Yes, I'm thinking of dropping a Seahawk. I'm glad you're recording this because it's not going to happen often.
I feel you. Well, so the first thing I would say is if Jason Myers and you have 2 kickers right now, then yes, you have to drop one of your kickers. Never have 2 kickers. I don't care how many teams are in your league. It does nothing for you. Kickers are so random week to week. So is he like your, how does that situation work out for you?
What? Sorry, I missed that. Sorry.
Do you have 2 kickers on your team right now?
I have in one. I've got Jason Myers in both, and I've got Nick Folk, as my backup to Jason, and I will start Nick over Jason every damn day. Wow, did I say that? I'm going to get kicked out of the 12th.
I'm sure they'll still love you, so don't worry about that. But yeah, kickers, if you love Jason Myers, you can go with him. Nick Folk looks great as well. That's kind of it's kickers. You don't worry too much about that. You could drop Dalvin Cook and Higbee, but it all depends on who. On the list from tonight, the only guys I would consider dropping either of those 2 for would definitely be Jerome Ford, 110%. I would drop either of those guys for Jerome Ford. And then I'd also consider dropping them for Tank Dell. I'm super high on Tank Dell, higher than most.
I was high on Dell too. So, all right. I'll see what I can do.
Either of those guys for him. Other than that, though, I don't see any reason to drop those guys.
Okay, awesome. Time to hit the waiver wire. Time to hit the waiver wires. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for the support. The super chats really do go a long way. I've seen you do it multiple times already this year. Love the call, and thank you for coming in.
Thanks so much.
So appreciate it, Megan.
Take care.
Great stuff. All righty, and we got one more call in, Mr. Campanelli, keeping the streak alive. My apologies for getting that out to you late, but what's going on, my man?
First off, subscribe, hit that like button. shop, Roto Street. Delivery is awesome.
Oh, hell yeah. Thank you so much. One of our best orders so far coming from Mr. Campanelli. We greatly appreciate it.
So in my league right now, I've never seen this. Everybody 1 through 10 or 1 through 12 is 1-1. So I have Higbee. I went off of the Higbee is going to could win leagues with tight ends back several weeks ago. Would you drop Higbee for Hunter Henry or for Sam Laporta?
Either. Yes.
So who would you prioritize?
We didn't see Puka Nacua becoming a god. That was,
exactly.
So yes, I'd rather have Henry. I'd rather have Laporta than Higbee, but Henry would be my top pick of both of those guys.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
And then
he looks like a stud in this Patriots offense. I mean, Bill O'Brien reviving the double tight end sets. I was at the game on Sunday. He was making clutch grab after clutch grab. He's run 90% of the routes in back-to-back games. Hunter Henry's that dude. He's going to be a top 6 tight end for me rest of the season.
And then cheap. So this is for my 2 defense league, which I still want to kill the commissioner for. But Chiefs were taken. I have a waiver claim in for the Titans. Do we like the Jags against Houston this week? Or
I don't hate it. They've allowed the most pressure in the league. They throw it so much, which means sack after sack. I can see Bradley Chubb getting 3 sacks himself this game. Stroud definitely turnover prone as well. I think the Jags make a fine play, yeah.
Or it was the other one was whoever's playing Houston. I can't remember off the top of my head.
So Jags plays Houston. Are you thinking about Arizona? Who's facing them?
Cowboys, so they're gone. But yeah,
they're gone. It could be also the Titans who I shouted out at the end of the show facing the Browns.
Yep. All right, there we go. So perfect. Thanks, Wolf.
I would probably go Jags first, then Titans, but I love them both.
Awesome.
I spend too much money to get either. It's a defense at the end of the day. So
when it comes to defense, I never throw FAAB out for them. So
yeah, just pick up whichever one you get for free. Is how
exactly. So thanks, Wolf. Have a good one.
Cheers, Campanelli. Thanks for the call-in, as always. Alrighty, Wolfpack, let's continue on with the rest of the mailbag. It is 9:52, so I'm going to go pretty quick at this point. Thanks again so much for the super chats, Kevin and Megan, and that call-in for both of our man David and Megan as well, calling in to the show. But I do want to wrap this up because I'm sure Hillary's trying to sleep in the other room, and I'm keeping her up, and I want to make sure not to do that. So I'm going to go as quickly as I can through this while trying to still answer the questions in good depth. When 10 hits, I am going to sign off. So let's see what we got. What's up, Giuseppe? I would not Bob Trees. So you got to just pick up one who's the best long-term stash. I do think it's still a chain, Debonair chain. If you don't need to start Reynolds, he's going to be a 1-2 week rental. Both of those guys, both Reynolds. I think Bob Trees is a nice usable asset, but to me, if it's just a long-term upside stash, it's a chain, especially with Salvin Ahmed now banged up. Let's see what he does. I would say I probably would rather have the Jags D. Given those matchups, I think that's solid. But if you're only allowed 35 moves, I don't know that I'd waste one on streaming these defenses. I'd probably just stay put. It's not worth it at that point. I do think Jameson's worth a stash upside, especially if you can stash in an IR spot, but most leagues don't allow that. Kareem Hunt, again, once he signs, yeah, probably, but I'd rather have Jameson Williams. Now you have only 4 more weeks. Let's see what he does. 2 QB league, Mahomes and Fields. All I'm worried about. Fields, should I pick up QB3, Tannehill or Ritter? I don't know. If it's one or the other, I guess Tannehill. He looked much better this last week. Drop Zeke for Swift or Ford for Ford, 110%. Swift, though, too. Oh, who to prioritize? Nicola, I think you got to drop multiple people to try to get both these guys. They're both in my top 50 rest of the season. Ford might be on the fringe, like 55 or so. Swift a little bit higher. So I would go Swift first. Just higher upside in that offense. I think more proven at the NFL level. I want both of these guys, though. I would go Swift first, then Ford. But if you can somehow try to get both of them, go for it. And I mean, if you want to prioritize Ford instead, because it is a bigger risk that Swift gets overtaken right away, if they want to go right back to Gainwell, Ford's the starter at least for these next couple of weeks, unless Pierre Strong really comes on strong. Strong on strong, baby. But I would go. I'd go Swift then Ford myself. But I love them both. Oh man, it's you got to trust your gut there too. I think Okonkwo is a dynasty. I think Musgrave actually. What's up, Yoso Tony? How much fab would you be dropping on Ford? 100%. I don't care about the Kareem Hunt visit. They said even if they sign someone new, Jerome Ford will be featured. Whenever they featured anybody, obviously Nick Chubb's the monster, but even Dearness Johnson, like he had 22-point days. This offense is such a clean, beautiful zone scheme. Yes, I'm all in on Ford. The guy thrives with volume, and I think he's going to see it. So yes, 100% fab. Doesn't matter to me if Kareem Hunt visits, signed. Doesn't make a difference to me. Jerome Ford show. Stan Kyren Williams, Josh Kelly, or Tank Dell as a flex. Kyren Williams, head and shoulders above everybody at this point. He's a feature back in an offense that's very surprising. Dalvin Cook, yeah, he's droppable. I've never been a huge Dalvin Cook guy. In particular, it depends on who's out there, but yes. I'd hold on to Akers for now, Tunes. What if he ends up in Cleveland? I know Ford will still be the guy for now, but the Bucs might trade for him. There's interesting spots that he could land for sure. What's going on, Brunel? Between Sean Tucker, Kendre, Tyjae Spears, and Pierce Strong, I would go Tyjae over all these guys. And then I would go Kendre to see what he does as a starter this week. But I'd go Tyjae first. Also, I was offered Garrett Wilson and Devin Achane for Higgins and QJ. I'm scared with Garrett Wilson, too. I'd rather have Higgins. The other two seem pretty inconsequential, so I'd stay. Kendre Miller for Stan Team. Josh Kelly, Kyren Williams, Swift, Montgomery, who would use running back 1 and 2 plus a flex. Come to this at start show. I got to kind of move through the waiver stuff first, but my gut reaction is Montgomery's not going to play, so Kyren, Swift, and Josh Kelly, there stand. I can give you more depth on the sit start show Thursday, 6:45. We'll be live next. Jerome Ford, Zach Moss, and Jaylen Warren in that order with my number 5 pick, hoping I get one of them. Is that the right order? I would probably put Jaylen Warren ahead of Zach Moss, unless you need to start. But once Taylor's back, I don't think Moss is going to be worth much at all. So I would put Warren with longer term value ahead of him. Hey, Wolf Hurton here, lost Chubb. Oof, that is brutal, Joe. I'm so sorry to hear that. What a terrible, tough week. The injury sucks as it is. It's just so bad to watch, but it's awful when it also impacts your week. That losing by less than a point. D. Lorenzo, what's good? Good to see you, brother. Bryce, should I trade DK and Ramondre for Chase and Algier? I don't like that deal. Yeah, I think I would. It's close, but I think I would. Sarah, should I drop Javonte, Sutton, or Watson for Nakua? I would drop any of those. I would drop Sutton, then Javonte, then Watson in that order. But Sutton would be my first man out. I would drop, Sutton for any. I would drop Sutton for Nakua, drop Sutton for Ford. I would drop Sutton for Nico. Once we get past them, nothing really intrigues me much. I don't know that I would drop Javonte for Ford. I don't think I'd drop Christian Watson for Ford. So I really think it's just Sutton, and I would drop him for Nakua, Ford, or Nico Collins. Yes, any of those three. Javonte would be the next man on the chopping block, but you gotta be patient. He's such a good talent, so I think I wait that out. Any stash upside for Zeke? Roster is deeper at wide receiver, but not really. There's no real upside there, in my opinion, unless there's an injury to Ramondre. All right, keep moving forward here. And again, we'll pick that thumbs up button. One last plea, one last call for it. It would be so appreciated. PPR trade, Rachaad White and Garrett Wilson for Jameer. I'd rather have the Rachaad White and Garrett Wilson side, Jose. Jameer, the usage just isn't right there right now. The talent's clearly there, but it seems like they truly want to keep him in a pretty limited role, getting Craig Reynolds involved even when Monty's out. Come on. Kyren from the 5th. Yeah, there we go, Magic Mike, the genius wolf. I'll take it. Should I drop Freiermuth for Ertz or Kincaid? Should I drop E. Moore for any of the blokes of the list? I would drop E. Moore for definitely Jerome Ford, probably Tank Dell as well. And then I don't know. From there, I don't think so. Those are really the two that I'm prioritizing this week. So if you can get either of them, yes, I would. And I think I keep Fry over those other two, but man, it's totally justifiable. It's just tight end. It's becoming like a kicker position unless you have Travis Kelce at this point. You just kind of hope for the random score. Better stash, Mims or Jamison Williams? I think probably Jamison. I really like what I saw from Mims last week. And, you can actually learn more about Mims in the next week or two and hope Jamison doesn't get picked up. Giuseppe, I'd go Mims. I need help at running back. Pierce is struggling. I don't know. He's probably responding to each other in the chat. Kareem Hunt meeting with Cleveland. It doesn't change anything for me. Like I said, I'm still all in on him. Hey, what's up, Bulldog? Thumbs up button indeed. All righty. Should I start Godwin or Addison? I'm going Addison this week. Get that matchup against the Chargers, most points allowed to receivers. Let's do it. Drop Higbee? Yes. I think we just answered that one, Campanelli. I absolutely would do that. Heard Eckler could be traded. Interesting, Megan. And yeah, maybe a trade deadline guy, given the earlier contract stuff. I love everybody interacting in the chat here. Great to see people helping people there. But it's a tough one, Kevin. It is a tough one. Yeah, I don't know. It wasn't a slam dunk, so I don't think I do it. Someone shopping Charbonnet? I don't know. I'm sure. I don't really care for him, no. Unless it's Dynasty, but otherwise, no. Should I trade Swift for Madison? I'd rather have Swift all day, Frank. I don't want anything to do with Madison. Kyren and Garrett Wilson for CD, and I take CD, Waller, and Addison. Definitely there, Luke. Give me the CD, Waller, and Addison side, 10 out of 10. And I love Kyren. I have Kyren and Garrett in my league, and I would absolutely go for CD, Waller, and Addison over them. There you go. Good luck with the Titans. I hope that works out well for you. And thanks again for the super chats, guys. So greatly appreciated. Chat, how would you prioritize? I would go Ford, Nico, then Roschon there. CMC, Javonte, and Pacheco. How much FAAB of the 120 should I put on FAAB? You probably mean Ford, Marquise, and I'd still put 100. Like honestly, I put what I need to go get them. You know your league better than me, but I would put whatever you need to, even if it's all 120. There's not going to be a running back like this unless there's another horrible injury. But even then, the Browns backups are consistently the most valuable in fantasy. Fatty started 0-2 for the first time. That's brutal, but you do have the best Hail Marys in the league. So there you go, Fatty. I don't know, Tunes. Yeah, maybe, but I really want to see what he's doing with Cooper Kupp first before I give Puka first round value. But man, he's such an interesting player. I would prioritize Hunter Henry there, Boba. I would go all 85 muffins on Ford. How would you pick up Shaheed, Reynolds, or Atwell? I would go Atwell, then Shaheed, then Reynolds, Pat Sullivan. Waller over Henry very slightly there. RQG. I have Bourne and Shaheed on my bench. Should I drop any of them for Dell, B. Cooks? I would drop, yes, both for the first two guys, Dell and B. Cooks. I might keep Shaheed over Cooks, but I definitely would drop either for Dell, and I drop Bourne first. Yes, drop any of the three tunes. I love Tank Dell. I really do. If I have Bijan, Swift, and JT, should I invest? Yeah, I think he's just so worth it. Like, I know you don't need it, but valuable running backs like that don't grow on trees. Would you trade Roschon for Jerry Jeudy or Drake London? Yeah, I probably would, and I probably would prioritize London. But I don't know. It depends if you need the receiver. But yes, probably. Who would you drop? I would drop. I mean, honestly, I would drop Chig. And I would also get Kirk Cousins. So then the next drop would probably be Madison, just because he sucks, or Herbert, one of the two. Drop P. Ryan or Tyler Boyd. Yes, absolutely. Either of them, but I'd go Boyd first. And last question, Minofa, FAAB on Sutton. I don't care for Sutton that much. 25%. Dell 25% as well. I'd probably rather have take Dell, honestly. Alrighty, Wolfpack. That is it. Have a great rest of your night. Thank you so much for choosing to spend it. On your way out, please hit that thumbs up button. Help us continue to grow. If you like what you heard, hit that sub. We'll be live with you again on Thursday, answering all your sit-start questions. Let us know then what you got for us. RotoStreetJournal.com. My rankings are up. They'll be updated all week. All our waiver wire, trade value, all that good stuff up there and ready for you. In a world of Fantasy Sheep, be the wolf. Later, guys. Thanks again for all your